Let's move on now and talk about the Indian economy. Yesterday we had told you about the IMF's latest projections, the warning of an increasing risk of a global recession. India has emerged as a bright spot in this assessment now. But there are challenges for India too, and tonight we'll break down the latest numbers for you. Let's get started. India's latest retail inflation figures are out. First things first, what is retail inflation? It indicates how quickly prices of basic commodities are rising. You know, the things that you and I use on a daily basis. So what do the numbers say? They remain a cause of concern. India's retail inflation for September rose to 7.41%. This was mainly due to rising food prices. Inflation levels remain a cause of concern. September was the 9th consecutive month during which inflation remained high. India's Reserve Bank is responsible for keeping inflation in check. The upper limit for inflation, according to the RBI, is 6%. And retail inflation currently is well over 7%. Now, for the sake of comparison, retail inflation stood at 4.35% a year ago. So yes, the rising inflation should be a cause of concern. But how big of a problem is this? What about the other macroeconomic indicators? That has to be factored in. How is the Indian economy poised? Well, India looks better placed than the rest of the world in some areas. Let's now take a look at some key metrics. India's growth forecast for this year stands at 6.8%. Yes, the IMF has slashed India's growth projections. But despite that, India is likely to remain one of the world's fastest growing economies. What about debt? It is projected to be 84% of the GDP, a bit on the higher side. But India's reserves are strong. By the end of September, the RBI had well over $500 billion in its reserves. Let's talk about fiscal deficit now. That is the difference between revenues and earnings of the government. It is above 32%. So what does all this mean, all these figures? To sum up, India's growth remains strong. Debt and inflation need to be managed, and that needs to be an ongoing process. Let's tell you what's actually happening now. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is keeping an eye on all those numbers too. She plans to use the next union budget to deal with some of these challenges. Sitharaman said earlier that she plans to keep growth priorities on top while addressing the concerns around inflation. The world will carefully watch India's response because the global economy faces the same set of challenges as of now. According to the IMF, the global economy is troubled by three major problems. Listen in.
The global economy continues to face steep challenges shaped by three powerful forces: the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the cost of living crisis caused by persistent and broadening inflation pressures, and the slowdown in China. The three largest economies, the United States, China, and the euro area, will continue to stall. In short, the worst is yet to come.
Yes, the worst is yet to come. This situation has created some unique problems for India. What are those challenges? Number one, the crude prices. They are fluctuating at the moment. 85% of the oil used in India is imported. So the Indian economy is quite sensitive to crude price movements. And right now, oil producers want to raise prices. They are cutting their production. And that means more expensive oil for India and probably Indians. Challenge number two, the world's leading economy is falling into a recession. This global slowdown might hurt Indian exports, since an inflation might force foreign buyers to cut back on their orders to India. And this could have multiple implications. It could drag India's growth, widen India's trade deficit, and affect India's foreign reserves. How India navigates through all these challenges could very well decide the future course for the Indian economy. The global economic climate and its impact on India remains a top focus for us, and we will be keeping an eye on the future developments as well. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.